Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing another quick draft of Dominaria United. Without further ado, let's just get into our pack 1 pick 1, which is going to be a slam dunk incredible mythic rare. This is a 5 mana 5/5 flying creature with ward 2, so it's harder to target, and every time it deals combat damage to our opponent, we essentially get to draw a card, because even if we only have one basic land type, we still get to reveal the top 1 card of our library, make our opponent separate it into 2 piles, so they make a 1 card pile and a 0 card pile, and then we just get to pick and choose to draw the 1 card pile. So worst case scenario, if we're mono blue, this card is already insane, and the more colors we're playing, the more cards we get to potentially choose from with that card draw ability. So the card is absolutely absurd, and even though it says domain on it, you don't really have to do any domain shenanigans to get this card really functioning. So we're going to slam dunk a Sphinx of Clear Skies, busted mythic rare, and see where we get to go from there. And now for pack 1 pick 2, we get an incredible follow-up to our Sphinx, which is Fires of Victory. Definitely the strongest card in the pack. This is an excellent removal spell. Just okay if you're not playing blue, but if you're playing blue and red, then this card's pretty absurd. Any removal spell that lets you draw a card when you cast it as well is just fantastic because it's a 2-for-1. You're blowing up their creature and replacing the card in your hand with the next card in your deck immediately, so you can keep casting more spells throughout the game. Excellent, excellent card. We're going to go with that Fires of Victory here. And for pack 1 pick 3, this might be a nice, easy path to take here because we get another fantastic blue-red card, Balmor, Battle Mage Captain. 2 mana for a 1/3 flying bird wizard, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, all of your creatures get +1/+0 and trample until end of turn. So this is a little bit of kind of like a combo win condition in the late game in these blue-red spells decks, or early game if you get a really nice curve of creatures, because you can just stack up a ton of damage with this card pretty easily with a bunch of cheap combat tricks and burn spells and stuff like that. So Balmor is pretty exceptional. The Micromancer is also very good. There are multiple 1 mana instants and sorceries that are quite good, and the Micromancer is always going to be a 2-for-1 hitting the board and drawing one of those. So we could take Micromancer as well, but I think Balmor is a little bit more spicy even if it is more restrictive. Pack 1 pick 4 now. The best cards here are definitely the white cards, Argivian Cavalier, Destroy Evil, and Take Up the Shield. Joda's Codex is okay if you're good at getting the full 5 domain. And other than that, there's mainly Flowstone Infusion or Tangled Islet competing for our card to take here. The Tangled Islet is going to give us a little bit of extra value even with just a Sphinx of Clear Skies, and it leaves us a little more open to turning into more of a domain deck or splashing in some kind of powerful green card later. So Tangled Islet would be good for flexibility. Flowstone Infusion is fine as a nice cheap removal spell. Not an incredible removal spell in this format though. There are a lot of pretty beefy creatures and this doesn't kill a whole ton of stuff. So Infusion versus Tangled Islet, and I'm not super happy to be taking one of these pick 4. Would be pretty happy to take a Cavalier or Take Up the Shield or something if we were in white, but we are 2 blue-red cards down. I think we're pretty solidified into this path if we can be. We're definitely in blue at least with Sphinx of Clear Skies. I think I'll go with the Flowstone Infusion here. I've been doing a lot of domain stuff lately, so let's keep it a little interesting. Let's go for a pretty focused, pretty streamlined 2-color deck today if we can. Try to stick to just blue-red spells. And Flowstone Infusion, while it isn't an incredible removal spell, does get a lot better in the kind of deck that has cards like Balmor Battle Mage Captain that wants you to have a bunch of cheap instant sorcery spells since it is a cheap instant. Plus, we can use it on the aggressive with Balmor technically. Since Balmor's got that 3 toughness, we could use it for just +2 on the Balmor, which would be +3 because of Balmor's trigger, so that might be okay. Pick 5 now. There's 3 main cards competing. There's Territorial Morrow if we want to push more towards that domain strategy, which is probably what I would do if I wasn't recording, but I'd like to show you all a variety of decks and how to draft those when I'm recording videos, so I'm going to stay off of domain today if I can, since we played domain in our last quick draft and in the midweek Magic Phantom draft, so see if we can get a focused blue-red spells deck here, where the 2 best cards are Gitu Amplifier, got a pretty good kicker effect here, and with enough cheap instants and sorceries, this can just kill somebody super quick with that +2/+0, or Furious Bellow, which is a great cheap combat trick, and the blue-red spells deck does enjoy these cheap combat tricks quite a bit with cards like Balmor and cards like the Amplifier. I think I want to make sure I get my really spicy combo creatures like Balmors and Amplifiers first, since the cards like Furious Bellow tend to go pretty late in draft plods, at least with players. I'm not actually sure how late they'll go in bot drafts, but I assume we should be able to pick up some Furious Bellows with only a few cards left in the pack. So let's grab our Gitu Amplifier here. Pick 6, there's really nothing for us, so I'll probably speculate towards a domain card, even though I'm recording, just because there's nothing I'd really play in blue-red spells. Goblin Picker is playable, but very filler. Eldin Strike Team also playable, but filler. This card's a bit of a gamble. If we manage to get a few white dual lands, then it goes up a lot in value, where every now and then we can actually kick it. So I think if I were taking something just for blue-red, I would take Keldon Strike Team here, but it's enough of a gamble and very mediocre without the white mana to where I will just speculate towards a domain card this time. Take a Territorial Marrow or a Sunbathing Root Walla. Good reasons to take either one. The Marrow is just bigger up front, but the Root Walla is a little more flexible, giving you a blocker in the early game and a win condition late game. So I actually think I prefer the Root Walla, which is kind of crazy. But I really like Sunbathing Root Walla, maybe overvalue it a bit, but either way we're taking a speculative domain card there that we're probably not going to end up playing. Pick 7, we can go ahead and scoop up another copy of the Gitu Amplifier, and again, as I said before, those Furious Bellows are going nice and late, so we can pick those up later, hopefully. Mostly filler stuff. Again, here we'll take the Flowstone Kavu for the on-color filler creature. Gaia's Might is the strongest card in the pack, but when I am playing domain decks, I usually like to play a lot slower decks than the combat tricky ones that can use cards like Gaia's Might. And pick 9, we wheel the Electrostatic Infantry that was in our opening pack, which is an exceptional sign for blue-red spells. This is a fantastic card in the archetype. Hits the board nice and early. All you have to do is cast one instant or sorcery spell to make it worth the mana cost, because then it's a 2-mana, 2/3 trample, and anything you cast from that point on is just gravy. It just gets better and better and better, becomes this ridiculously large snowballing creature that keeps rolling over your opponent as it gets bigger and bigger. So we'll take an Electrostatic Infantry here for pack 1, pick 9, and be very happy about that one. Now we'll take a Molten Monstrosity over not much else. This isn't the greatest card in blue-red spells, but you can try to do some combo plays with this if you have a good collection of cards. The problem with this card is you do have to have a really good synergistic hand for it to play well. If you top deck this when you've got like 5 lands on board and just an amplifier and no spells to make the amplifier bigger, it's pretty bad, because then it's going to be like a 7-mana 5/5 trample. But if you have this in your hand early and you have a ton of spells in hand with your Balmor or your amplifier, and you play a +3/+0 combat trick, sometimes you do just get to dump this out for 1 to 3 mana with any creatures, especially the amplifiers, alongside a combat trick. Say we give this +3/+0 with a Furious Bellow, that's a 5 power creature, actually a 6 power creature total, because it's getting +5 total. And then this only costs 2 mana, so it's possible to play this on turn 4 if we have an amplifier on board, and then turn 4 we play Furious Bellow for 2 mana and then Molten Monstrosity for 2 mana. So there are some uses for the Molten Monstrosity, even if it is a bit risky. Pick 11, as aggressive as blue-red spells is as an archetype, I don't like Hammer Hand too much in it because it is an enchantment, not an instant or sorcery, so I guess we'll take Enthrall to the Pit, which I'm also not a massive fan of. Very expensive active treason effect, and mostly active treason effects, or effects that steal an opposing creature until end of turn, aren't even that great unless your opponent's unless you have cards that let you sacrifice your opponent's creatures. And here's why we took those amplifiers over the Furious Bellow. It does look like, very similarly to a player draft, you are going to be able to get combat tricks like Furious Bellow super late, even if they are pretty great in your deck, which I think they certainly are in blue-red spells. So happy to get Furious Bellow with pretty much literally nothing left in the pack. Pack 2, pick 1 does not look exceptional for us. There's a Negate and an Academy Wall, which are much better in grindier, slower, more controlling decks, but there's also a Lightning Strike, which is fantastic in these aggressive kind of spells decks, which is what we're going for right now. So we'll take a Lightning Strike here. Be pretty happy with that. One thing that we are noticing going into pack 2 is that we're very low on blue cards, which is awkward for Sphinx of Clear Skies. That card is powerful enough that we want to try really hard to stick to blue-red if we can. I guess technically you count the kicker cards, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 blue-red gold cards, so we're doing okay on blue spells. But that is something we want to keep in mind. With the double blue Sphinx of Clear Skies, we do want to get some more blue spells. We don't want to have a deck that really wants to run like 11 mountains and 6 islands. We'd like to have an even split or lean towards blue sources so that we can cast Sphinx of Clear Skies pretty consistently. A few excellent cards here, pack 2, pick 2. We have Impulse for fantastic instant speed card draw. This functions as a combat trick when we have an Amplifier or a Balmor on board as well, so this just goes a lot up in value, so Impulse is quite good. Miria's Outrider is a pretty strong card, but it would force us to start drafting some off-color dual lands just to up that domain, so it is really, really strong in the 5-color domain builds. Not super great in blue-red, but still serviceable if we draft a few duels to go with it. And then there's Talus Lookout for an exceptional flyer, 4 mana for a 3/2 flyer, and when it dies, not only do you get card draw, you get card selection. You get to pick out of the top 2 which card is better and put that one into your hand. So I like Talus Lookout a lot as well, but I'm going to go for the Impulse here, I think. I just really like the card selection that this gives us, looking 4 cards deep, putting the best card into our hand, doing it at instant speed so we can use it as a combat trick with our Balmor and our Amplifiers. A lot of great stuff Impulse can do for us. So we will scoop that up. Pack 2, pick 3. Nothing good for us here. Goblin Picker and Haunting Figment are both pretty filler. They both have abilities that can be helpful, but they're both kind of narrow abilities. The Picker helping us get out of any mana flood. The Haunting Figment, yeah, it can get unblockable every time you're casting an instant or sorcery, but it's still only going to hit for 2 every turn versus Amplifiers and Balmors hitting a lot harder. And that 1 toughness on the Figment is a really hard sell. There are a lot of 1/1 tokens in this format. So the Vigilance is pretty useless when this is never going to be able to block and survive anyway. So just doesn't feel the greatest to me. It might still be the pick over the Goblin Picker. We're definitely not taking the Horde Master unless I just want to draft some gems for the collection, but I don't think I'll be doing that. We could also take Geothermal Bog. That would up domain for Sphinx of Clear Skies at minimum and potentially help us splash in a black card like Lagomos or something later. Yeah, I think I'm enough disinterested in the Goblin Picker and Haunting Figment to take a Geothermal Bog speculatively. Pick 4, we got some mediocre filler creatures like Branch Rider and Dragon Whelp, and then a solid filler spell, Timely Interference. Just being able to cast this for 1 mana and draw a card. Perfectly fine in a deck with multiple Amplifiers and Balmors, just to trigger those things, but sometimes you get to kick this and clear out a pretty important creature off of your opponent's board, forcing them to block, so I like Timely Interference a lot here. Pretty easy pick there. Alright, this is going to be a really hard pick because there's 4 excellent blue spells here. Combat Research, I think I'm just going to write that off right now. This is good if your deck has a ton of cheap little flyers and evasive cards. We really just have the Balmor for getting in unblockably, which is a legend, so it does get the Ward 1, the +1/+1, which is cool, but we're a pretty low creature count deck, and we're low on evasive threats, so I don't think Combat Research is going to be great. Then we have Essence Scatter, excellent counterspell, especially in this format with so many creatures with excellent enter the battlefield effects to get rid of. There's also Phyrexian Espionage for a really good card draw spell. It's always a 2-for-1, and if you kick it, it's a 3-for-1, making your opponent discard a card. We did draft that Geothermal Bog, so now we would be running the Geothermal Bog if we take the Phyrexian Espionage, because then if we draw an Espionage with a Bog on board, we get to kick it, and if we draw it with a Sphinx on board, we get slightly higher domain. And then there's Shore Up, which is an excellent way to protect a creature like Balmor, giving it hexproof, untapping it. These are all great for our deck. It's rough to see them all in the same pack, because I'd love to have all 3 of these, because they fill entirely different roles. There's protecting our creatures, there's going up in card advantage, and there is stopping our opponent's threats. Let's check our deck check out our curve and check out our non-creature spells, see what we're pretty good at doing right now and what we're not great at doing. So currently we're doing okay on the creature count for a blue-red spells deck. We don't need a ton of creatures in this kind of archetype. As for removal, we have Lightning Strike and Fires of Victory and Flowstone Infusion. That's 3 removal spells. For card draw, we just have Impulse and Timely Interference, and these both only draw 1, although Sphinx can draw us cards consistently if we manage to get that out. And we've got 1 combat trip. We've got this Thrall I don't think I'm playing, but we're keeping it in the deck for now until we hit 23 cards. So, I think be a pretty big fan of card draw here. I mean, I'd be a huge fan of scatter too. I think those are my favorite kind of cards here. We've got a lot of instants, so it could be a pretty good essence scatter deck. The more instants you have, the better counter spells get, because then you're not in that awkward position where you end up having to hold the mana up for a counter spell to be safe and then just doing nothing with the mana. If you can hold up the mana for your counter spell and then during their end step, if they didn't cast anything for you to counter, you just get to Impulse or Lightning Strike or Timely Interference or something. That's pretty great. So I actually think Scatter might be the pick for me, but Espionage is also exceptional, as is Shore Up. Just a really good pack. I wish I could take all 3 of those. All right, now we've got a pretty slow removal spell. The Jaya's Fire Tornado. 5 mana is quite a lot. At that point, we're able to cast cards like Fires of Victory that can blow something up and draw a card that we'd much prefer. Soaring Drake is solid, nice cheap flyer, but I think I'd like to take a Molten Tributary here for excellent fixing. Pack 2, pick 7. Now we can go ahead and take a Shore Up over a Phoenix Chick, just because this kind of deck isn't going to be attacking with that many creatures. We're going to be attacking with a few that are getting huge buffs, really. So we'll take a Shore Up here to protect those few. Another Flowstone Infusion here, pretty flexible in our deck. As I said before, we can buff a Balmor or an Infantry or something, or clear out an opposing threat. So I like it a little better than the Furious Bellow. Now we get the Negate and the Academy Wall. Don't love either of these for this deck, and I'm not going to splash in a Bone Splinters or a Battlefly Swarm off of this bog. So I'll just take a Negate, but I don't think I'll be main decking it. Now we have Miria's Outrider still in here, or we could take a second Black Duel. I think I'd rather just take the Outrider because we don't actually have any black cards to splash. I suppose I could splash in the Kicker on the Enthrall to the Pit, but I'm pretty sure I'm just cutting this. Let's take an Outrider. We do get a Haunting Figment for another filler creature. For now, it's making the cut. There's a Branch Rider for a super filler creature. Another Shore Up super late. All right, double Shore Up, let's go. And a Fire Tornado, worst case scenario. That is better filler in our deck than Enthrall to the Pit is. So we're at 23 cards, but that is including a land here. And what did we open up? Basically nothing. There's a Bellow that will definitely wheel, a Figment that we already didn't want the first copy of, and then a Timely Interference, I guess. Pretty big bummer of a pack to open up. We'll take a Timely Interference, I suppose. See what we get past. All right, this pack is much better. There's a Lightning Strike, an Essence Scatter, and a Frost Fist Strider. There's even a Timely Interference, so we'll probably wheel one of these cards. Doubt we're wheeling a Scatter or a Lightning Strike. I think I'm taking the Strider up front. And I really like the Stun ability, and it's just a solid beefy 5-drop. But I guess I've got a couple solid beefy 5-drops, and instants are really, really, really good in this deck, and Lightning Strike is a particularly exceptional one for the flexibility of clearing out a cheap creature or shooting our opponent in the face. Might actually go Lightning Strike over Strider. And then maybe we can wheel a Scatter. I don't think we wheel the Strider as just like a pretty solid uncommon. But we should be able to get the Scatter or the Timely Interference to come back at least. Grab another Lightning Strike. Pack 3, pick 3. We can now go ahead and take our Phyrexian Espionage we passed up on earlier. So here comes Geothermal Bog. Pack 3, pick 4. This is kind of a rough pack for us. There's a Djinn of the Fountain, which looks like it works really well in this deck, but it's a 6-mana creature, which isn't really what this deck wants. Because when you get to late game with your mana, you'd prefer to just be able to play like a a smaller creature and hold up an instant rather than just like dumping a 6-drop it down. So I don't think it plays super well in this kind of deck. I guess we could still take it. It's probably the best card over another monstrosity or a scavenger or an illusionist, but pretty empty pack for us, so we'll just take the Djinn, I guess. But I'll probably end up cutting it. Now I will very happily take another Impulse. Pick 6 now. Furious Bellow versus Hurler Cyclops. Cyclops is not doing anything in our deck other than being a 5-mana 5/4, so take another Furious Bellow. And I'm noticing so many excellent domain cards. It really just feels like in quick drafts, you can and maybe even should just be in domain in every single draft. Take a Tide Turner here, although that might get cut. And nothing much here. We'll take a Thrill of Possibility for more instant speed potential card draw. And Moment of Truth, see what we wheel. I don't think there was anything good in this pack. We got both of the cards that we didn't take back here. We got the Figment and the Bellow. I've got double Bellow now. I'd probably take another Figment, although... yeah, I don't know. I'll play Figment over like Branch Rider. We have more filler creatures than that. I think... I don't remember which pack it was, but I think we didn't wheel any of the good blue or red cards, which is sad. Yep, that definitely seems to be the case. So we are going to have to make do with the cards we currently have as we move into the deck building. Alright, so take a peek at that mana curve with our 48 cards here. So if we cut some of the higher end cards off the curve, we can drop multiple lands here and rely on double Impulse, maybe even double Thrill of Possibility to keep us fueled. So let's drop Miria's Outrider, Jaya's Fire Nado, Molten Monstrosity for the inflexibility, and Djinn of the Fountain for the very expensive mana cost. And then we just have to drop 4 cards. Branch Rider is quite filler. The Haunting Figments are not cards I'm a super big fan of. Tide Turner isn't excellent in a more aggressive build, which is the direction that we are headed here. Then that would be the 4 cuts. Might just drop those out, call it a deck there. I like everything else quite a bit. Let's see, so Fires is definitely a 5-drop. Espionage is usually a 3-drop in this deck. Anything else that costs more mana than it looks like? Timelies might be 3 mana, but you get plenty of value off of them for just 1. Let's check our creatures versus non-creatures. On the curve, looks pretty good. Not a lot of creatures, but you don't use a lot in this kind of deck. Yeah, I mean... I don't think Blue-Red was super open in our draft pod. We just got an early Sphinx of Clear Skies, Balmor, and Fire's Victory pushing us in that direction. And again, a lot of this was me just trying to play something else today. If we weren't in Blue-Red, I would have 100% just been in Domain for the 5,000th time in a row. So strictly trying to win, strictly making the best picks. As I said during the draft, would have been just taking more of those Domain cards early. So this draft didn't go perfectly, but I think that it didn't go horribly. And again, it's not that it didn't go perfectly because I made a mistake without realizing it. It's because I actively chose to go down the worse path here to avoid playing Domain for the 50,000th time. The most open deck, the most powerful deck we could have ended up in would have been a green-based Domain pile for certain. We saw Tachiova, we saw tons of Territorial Maros and Sunbathing Root Wallas, dual lands galore. Would have been a great draft pod for doing that again, but not incredibly unhappy with how this deck panned out. Just would have preferred to see Blue-Red be a little more open. So let's cut these 4 cards and call it a deck there. Alright, so here's a look at today's deck list. This is going to be a blue-red spells deck. It's kind of an aggro/combo deck with a tiny bit of control elements just from having a few removal spells and a counter spell, but mostly trying to tempo our opponents out, getting something like an Amplifier, an Infantry, or a Balmor on the board, and then slowing our opponent down, countering their big creatures, shooting their tiny creatures, and potentially chaining out a victory with some cheap combat tricks with some buffs like Amplifier. Getting a Furious Bellow on it just immediately hits for, what, like 6 damage total off of just that one combat trick, so that's huge. Balmor, if we have any other creatures on board, can do a ton of damage. And of course, we've got the shore-ups to protect them while also being combat tricks and some other tricks like that. So lots of combo aggro kills we can try to get. We've also got the excellent bomb rare Sphinx of Clear Skies if we make it to 5 mana. And then we can just get a ton of card draw and kind of win the game single-handedly off this card. So looks like a pretty solid deck today. Not perfect for sure. Not the greatest blue-red deck that I've drafted. I don't think it was incredibly open in this draft pod, but certainly not an awful deck at all. So excited to see how it does. I'm not actually sure on this one. I don't know if it's going to be like excellent or if it's just going to like 2-3 go into mediocrity here. I guess we'll find out soon enough as we head into the gameplay. Last second change to the deck, I just realized somehow we do still have 17 lands in here. We do have double Thrill of Possibility, wanting us to have something expendable to discard late, so I don't think that's horrible, but I do want to put in at least like one more non-land card. We want to cut at least one land in this deck. So one last minute change, probably put something mediocre like a Haunting Figment back in, just up that creature count, or maybe a Fire NATO for another removal spell. Let's last second plop a Haunting Figment. I guess we'll put both the Figments back in, cut 2 lands here, and head into the gameplay from there. Here we are for game 1. Definitely a slower start. We don't have any of our pretty important 2-drop creatures, but we've got great value with the Phyrexian Espionage coming up. So we'll try to just go for some classic card advantage stuff this game. Our opponent's on a really aggressive start, curving out 1-drop into 2-drop. You don't see that a whole ton in this format, because there's not a ton of great 1-drop creatures. If they go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop on us, we could just die, but that is the case for almost any deck in any draft format. If your opponent just curves out their mana perfectly every single turn, you're going to be under a lot of pressure regardless. It's an electrostatic infantry to get us started, which is great, and we're quite happy to see that they have a gibbering barricade over there, because that is just going to be a defender. It's not going to add to their aggro at all. So I could infusion their Knight of Dawn's Light while they don't have the mana up to buff it, and they don't have the mana to sacrifice it, but I think I'd rather use it later, because we can use it as kind of a trick with the infantry if we use it at instant speed, where they don't know whether or not it's going to have the counter on it. Now, if they just immediately go to combat, don't play anything, then we will have to take some extra damage for doing this, but I think it's worth that little risk just in case they had something they wanted to roll out pre-combat there, and now they're just going to pass? Alright, well, that goes really poorly if they have literally nothing to do with their mana, but that is a bit unexpected. So now we just... why on earth? I guess it wants to hold up a shore up here instead of an infusion. I think infusion's better to hold up. I guess with Thrill of Possibility, we don't have to Espionage here. We could Thrill, discard a Bellow or a Kavu. Yeah, I've got like 1,000 combat tricks here. So I did take some extra damage for that infusion line. I guess we should have just main phased it. Obviously, in hindsight, if they do nothing with all of their mana, we should have just main phased it. But we've got plenty of tricks and stuff here. Plenty of instants. So I think what we're going to do... they've got the mana to buff the Knight twice, so I would need to make infantry 5 toughness. If I infusion, it goes up to 3 toughness, and then if I shore up after the infusion, it's at 5. The problem with that is it's not playing around an instant speed removal spell from our opponent to blow up the infantry. So let's... I guess I can still put them in a position where they're forced to dump some of their mana into the Knight, because I can infusion the Swarm and then declare the block on the Knight. Then they have to soak up a couple of their mana, which makes it so it'd have to be a pretty cheap removal spell to get the infantry out of here. Okay, 2 mana soaked up. Now if I Furious Bellow, they'll have to spend another 2, or if I Thrill, let's go Thrill here. And then they'll be down to 1 mana. They need a 1 mana trick to win against my shore up. Seems solid. And then I probably don't need Furious Bellow now that the infantry is this big, so we'll discard that one. and draw another Shore Up and another Flowstone Infusion for some cheap tricks. All right, there we go. This is beautiful. So now they've got 1 white mana up that shouldn't be able to beat a 5/6 infantry. Shouldn't be able to have any instant speed removal in response. And now I can just hold up a Shore Up for the rest of the game to make sure infantry survives, and we just roll that snowball in. Just keep jamming that thing out there. It's got a Flowstone Kavu as a friend over here now, which is great. Shield's Restoration, not kicked, so they do lose some life, at least. Alright. But the Knight of Dawn's Light is back. Not a huge issue with the size of our creatures right now. I guess they could double block the Flowstone Kavu and then buff the Knight, kill it with their first strike damage. Timely Interference can make that not happen, but it'll still die. It'll just end up trading. Could also Infusion in response to them buffing. Yeah. I think we're still good to just jam everybody in, holding up all these instants. Generally the plan with these blue-red decks. Okay. Let's kill the Knight, and that's fine. Alright. I guess we're just going to kill the Knight then. I'm not going to spend any mana here if they don't force me to. And then we'll Espionage instead, holding up Shore Up. Absolutely not. And there's the concession from our opponent. They were relying on that, banking on that Destroy Evil to kill the infantry. And that is why they didn't want to spend any mana during that combat on the Kavu. They wanted to try to get us to spend all of our mana so that we wouldn't have anything up to save our infantry, but that is definitely how we are not going to play that game. So 1-0 there. Very, very solid stuff from just a stack of instants with an electrostatic infantry on board, really showing off the power of that creature. That's probably the strongest creature in our deck. It's probably even better than Balmor since we don't have a super high creature count. So yeah, pretty excellent stuff overall. The one line that could have gone pretty drastically different, of course, was if I just Infusion in the main phase, we would have taken significantly less damage that game. I probably should have 100% in hindsight, but without the information of what they were going to do the next turn, my thought process was if they do something main phase before combat, then we can really, really get them, get a huge 2, maybe even 3 for 1 there. And then if they don't do something pre-combat, they probably at least spend their mana on something post-combat. But then none of that happened. They just had all their mana open to buff their creature to save it from the infusion. So went as poorly as possible. Maybe I should have just accepted that just infusioning the first striker immediately was good enough value, since I basically had to do that anyway. Just a 1-for-1 infusion into a creature later. So that's the one thing that could have gone pretty different, but other than that, everything played out pretty well for us. 1-0 heading into game 2 now. Here we are now for game 2. Looks like we're going to be on the Haunting Figment beatdown plan here. Not a plan I like to be on particularly often. Again, that 1 toughness being a very, very hard selling point. They die to any creature or any removal spell in the book, but had to throw some filler creatures in here over our 16th, 17th land with how low our curve is. So we'll see how much work they can do. There's a Sunbathing Root Walla from my opponent, which I will happily blow up immediately. I guess I could just trade Figment into it and I'd be fine with that. Okay. Never mind, we shall trade a Figment off. And we will Infusion the Rager then, make the most of all of our mana here. Keep that path clear. Drawn to an Electrostatic Infantry with the 2 mana up for the Impulse to get a land for Sphinx. Not in love. I should have done this during their turn to make them think we could have a scatter. Not in love with the fact that I'm trying to draw a land here with an infantry on board, but I do think we need to guarantee that we're playing Sphinx next turn, curving out very mana efficiently. Our opponent is quite a bit ahead in card advantage. I guess they were on the draw, so they naturally draw an extra card. Plus, Phyrexian Rager put them up another card. And we have 6 cards committed to the board. They only have 4, so yeah, that would make sense. Another Sunbathing Root Wall. That is excellent. There's an Amplifier for us. I could just bounce it, but be pretty fine trading again. Got a black and a white up. They have here for 2 mana. The Death Touch Indestructible trick, I guess, to kill the infantry. Still a 1-for-1 trade, and they don't have that for Sphinx, although in order to kill Sphinx with that trick, they would need a flying creature or a reach creature. I mean, I've got a really big, really spooky threat, so if I can get them to spend something on one of these instead of Sphinx, that's great. Oh, they've got Resolute Reinforcements. That's pretty bad. At least I still get to kill Root Walla here. Okay. Drop a Sphinx, pass the turn. Yeah, really hard to decipher what your opponent's combat tricks can be when they're on like a 3+ color deck. One of the big boons to being one of these domainy strategies. It's like I wouldn't imagine a lot of domain decks use a ton of combat tricks, so figuring out which ones they have is difficult. And then they didn't have a combat trick. They had the 2 1/1s at instant speed, which is quite good for them. Just a really great defensive card for the domain strategies. Wow, that's an excellent first pile to hit. We obviously take Shore Up, and they're going to be pretty sad about that, because now they really can't kill the Sphinx, and it's going to kill them in 2 swings. So let's kick the Amplifier, hold up our Shore Up mana, just kill a 1/1. We'll kill the fancy 3D 1/1. And now, basically, unless they can board wipe us, Sphinx is just going to kill them in 2 hits. There is a board wipe that would work if they have more fixing than they currently have, or if they have more basic land types than they currently have. That would be the drag down. Everything gets -X plus 1. Where X is the basic land type count they have. So currently it's -4/-4. If they play another basic land type, they can turn into -5/-5, and that would save them. So Boartug Bone Rattle, fantastic card, phenomenal card, huge reason to start doing a bit of domainy stuff, and they get excellent value with it, bringing back the Rager. But again, our game plan remains, we're doing fine here. And now I could even Timely Interference to hit them for 7 here, putting them to 3 life, so that if I draw into a lightning strike, they're dead. So let's Timely Reinforcements, or Timely Interference here. I don't really care about forcing a block, but I do care about just getting unblockability on the Figment. Draw into a Flowstone Kavu. That is not a lightning strike, so we will just hit them down to 2. Not quite lethal. But there could be a lightning strike off of the Sphinx. Ah, Furious Bellow. That would have killed them if we had it earlier. But not after the Sphinx hit. Alright, drop the Kavu. Hold up a Shore Up. Now, even if they find a way to blow up the Sphinx, they need to be able to kill the Haunting Figment as well to not die. They're going to send in a Bortuck. I'm going to not block. Archangel of Wrath. Kicked once. So they shoot something and gain some life. I'm going to have to Shore Up here so that they don't gain life. And now if they do have a removal spell for Sphinx, it would have to cost 1 mana, but it would resolve. But then I just kill them with Figment because they can't block Figment either. Alright, so I need to hit them with just the Figment here because the Archangel is lifelink. I guess if I first strike the Sphinx, then we're good. Because then they don't get any life off of blocking, because I first strike away their creature. Yeah, now I can attack with both still. So they can't block the Figment, they die to that. Plus, we just first strike away the Archangel if they do have instant speed removal for the Figment. So they stay at 2. Alright. Excellent. Excellent stuff from Sphinx of Clear Skies. For the most part, that game just showing off how it really is a bomb mythic rare. We are now 2-0 heading into game 3. Here we are for game 3. We've got our one Haunting Figment in a Dream. Thrill of Possibility being probably the best card in the hand here. We'll keep it. That should be pretty helpful to set us up. And now we've drawn into an Amplifier as well. Okay, there's an Essence Scatter. Do I just hold up Scatter here and Thrill? If I don't need to cast it, I don't think I really need to Scatter turn 3. I guess we can Scatter an Argivian Cavalier. They play an Argivian Cavalier that's slightly annoying, but not a ton. Kind of want to just try to wait till I have 4 mana, then I can drop a 2-drop and hold up a Scatter. I want to at least get one creature on board before I start just holding up Scatter every turn. Let's drop the Figment, since the Amplifier Kick ability can get us some extra value. But then we can hold on to the Amplifier till we have 5 mana. So there's a Gibbering Barricade, which is slightly annoying, but not a huge deal for Haunting Figment. And we can just play it slow for now at this point. And now we can just hold up that Scatter, Thrill of Possibility, all this kind of stuff. Charismatic Vanguard, alright, we will Infusion that. And I think I'd rather Infusion it during my turn so that I can hit them with Figment, actually. Which means I Thrill right now. I am trying to hit 5 mana, but I also am a very greedy human being, so I'm going to discard this land. Alright, now we have an Impulse to hold up, beautiful stuff. We've got a Lightning Strike 2. Just Infusion the Vanguard, get in with the Figment. The Amplifier makes it really safe to where if I don't... I might have to Scatter that. I was going to say, if I don't have Scatter up at the right time, then I can still just bounce something back to their hand and Scatter it later. I kind of feel like I have to Scatter this, because if I kill this with any kind of removal, it's going to kill my Figment too, so this is going to like 2-for-1 me. I guess unless we just trade up front, Figment for Goblin, but that's not going to happen until I clear the Barricade out. I kind of hate that I'm doing this. I guess I could shore up when they try to Goblin my thing, but that's still a 2-for-1. We still kill the Goblin and then spend another spell to survive. Kind of think I have to Scatter. This is super awkward. Phyrexian Rager, okay. That is, weirdly enough, slightly more fine to me than the Splatter Goblin, even though they're both 2-for-1s. I definitely don't want to bounce it. Definitely don't want to bounce it with my 5th land here. I do think this is a fine turn to get that Amplifier down now that we've got the Scatter out, though. Bounce that Barricade. We can go Figment for Rager. Yeah, I mean, I guess the Scatter play ended up pretty awkward. Since if I held on to Scatter and then I scattered the Rager instead, now we'd be trading Figment into the 2-1 Goblin and it wouldn't kill anything else, so they actually wouldn't get a 2-for-1 off of it on this block. But I didn't know if I was going to have the 5th mana to bounce something. Argivian Phalanx. Alright, I can't make Amplifier big enough to kill that without dying, but I can certainly make it trade. I think I want to Impulse pre-combat here. Maybe I can find a Bellow. Ooh, we're a Fires of Victory. If I Bellow, I just win this combat immediately. If I Fires of Victory, I hold it in my hand and wait, cast it next turn to kill that. I think it's pretty important to draw more cards here. So let's pick up Fires of Victory. Do I attack? Hope they don't block. If they do block, I have to 2-for-1 myself to kill the Phalanx, but I could like lightning strike their face. It's not the worst deal in the universe. I don't foresee Amplifier ever getting through for a ton of damage because they're just going to replay a barricade and then it's going to trade off into a barricade instead anyway. But we do have one more Furious Bellow in the deck. I forgot that it lets you sort. It's not random, so I should have manually sorted those. But there's one more Bellow somewhere. I guess I have to just hold on to this. In case I hit another Bellow or a Balmor or something. Okay, so replay the barricade. Please have something else to do with your mana. They've got nothing else to do with their mana. This is going to be a big bummer, because then they can sack Phalanx in response to fires and I don't draw the card. Disgusting. Okay. So we can't Fires the Victory until they don't have 3 mana up for Barricade. Drop the Tributary past the turn. Perfect. Now I can Fires. That's actually a super bad time for us, though, because now the Barricade draws them 2 extra cards off of these reinforcements. Maybe I actually should have just shot the Barricade. Phalanx is the immediate threat for just extra damage every single turn. But Barricade potentially drawing them 2 more cards is not good in the kind of war of attrition over time. Okay, there's the cut down for Amplifier. That was always going to be able to kill it at some point. I guess not if we had Shore Up mana up. A Blight Pile with the Barricade, alright. Well, we've got a Lightning Strike with Blight Pile's name on it. Find a creature. We do find a Flowstone Kavu. That is certainly a creature. Yeah, this Barricade's actually going to take over this game. I maybe should have just killed Barricade here. The Phalanx was the much more obvious threat up front, but Barricade's ability to sack their creatures, gain them a life, draw a card, is really going to grind them out to win this game. Because now, when I inevitably have to Lightning Strike a Blight Pile, they can just sack it to a Barricade. I'm going to wait to do that, because we might be able to get an opportunity where they spend 3 on a spell, like a Braid's Frightful Return, and then during our end step they activate the Blight Pile and they don't have the mana up for Barricade, and then I can kill the Blight Pile without them gaining a life and drawing a card. Frightful Return is another just huge card advantage play. Our opponent's just on an excellent, like, War of Attrition style card advantage deck over here. Bone Splinter's not really excellent, but it does make sure the reinforcements is in their grave if they want that, but I think they're just going to get a Phalanx or a Rager anyway. Do think this is a Shore Up time. Okay, those are both 3 mana abilities, so I can definitely resolve a Lightning Strike. And then I actually hit them with Kavu. This Frightful Return is an issue, though. So they're going to get a creature from their grave to their hand, so they're going to get their Phalanx or Phyrexian Rager back. Then they're also going to sack the Rager to draw another card, basically, on Chapter 3. Sack a non-land, non-token permanent? Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. Yeah, our opponent's just loaded with 2-for-1s. So, if I were my opponent, I would probably just pick up Rager, play it, draw another card, then sack it to the return on Chapter 3, draw another card. They pick up Splatter Goblin. That was like the last thing on my mind. I was expecting like Phalanx or Rager mainly, or Reinforcements, since Reinforcements gives them expendable creatures for card draw for Barricade and Frightful Return. But I guess let's see what the game plan is here with Splatter Goblin. Oh, they have a Phyrexian Missionary to kick for their other card. Wow, yeah. It's like almost every spell in their deck is just accruing card advantage here. Again, like life total wise, it looks even, but they've got so much value. Their deck is really, really good at grinding it out. I think our best bet in this kind of matchup would have been to have like a super, super aggressive opener and just try to blow them up quick. That is clearly not happening here. So I think the game's looking pretty over. Our deck's not terrible at card advantage. We have 2 Impulses, 2 Thrill of Possibility, and a Phyrexian Espionage. Oh, they don't even have to sack something to trigger that part? Oh, it's literally just we have to sack a thing. Okay. Wow, that's really good. Okay. Yeah, can't do anything about that. We take 4. We're pretty dang dead. Pretty dang dead. They're at 11 here. We could hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 is not 11. Block of Phalanx and Furious Bellow takes 6, go to 2, still technically alive. Yeah, I can't even like Hail Mary find lethal here, so we have to just start combat tricking on blocks. Because the infusion gives -2 toughness, that's why we can't just kill them. If it didn't give -2 toughness, we could hit them for like exact lethal. If I played the mountain, I think I'd have enough red mana. I'd need 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. But since infusion gives the -2 toughness and shore up only gives +1, we can only buff Kavu to its own ability once, so that's 3 from Kavu, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Might have to kill Missionary here. Slow down their, just stop their life gain. I still don't think we're gonna find a Hail Mary crackback if we do that. We have to just hit like Phyrexian Espionage into 2 great cheap spells or something. At least we get to scry here. That is definitely helpful. They haven't even activated their Gibbering Barricade once, but that's always been a terrifying threat, speaking of all their card advantage. That once I do start doing these things where I have to chip away their blockers, it's like boom, they draw a card here, then I infusion another attacker, they draw another card. Just making sure every creature in their deck from this point on is a 2-for-1. Where I spend Furious Bellow on it, and they draw a card off of it anyway, and they scry one first, they scry one and draw a card. I guess I should have infusioned the Vivisector first and then cast the Furious Bellow. I think I still do infusion the Vivisector. Maybe infusioning Splatter Goblin is solid too, but I only have one toughness creature left in my deck, I think. It's just a Haunting Figment. Everything else is 2 toughness or more, where Splatter Goblin's not a huge deal. I mean, I guess I can't block and kill Splatter Goblin, so I guess I should have killed Splatter Goblin here. It's kind of like it attacks as a 3-1, so it trades into Kavu. Yeah, I should have killed Splatter Goblin over Vivisector, even if it means them drawing more cards, and their Necromass is 1 mana now. Alright, there's a Balmor. I think it's too late. Block, block, take 2. They draw more cards here. Alright. not technically completely over yet, but we're never getting out the card advantage hole that we're currently in. And I am under a bit of a time constraint for this recording session, so we are going to scoop it up there. Our odds of winning are down way below 1% at that point with the amount of card advantage, how good their deck is at a long War of Attrition style game. So 2-1 here. Get outclassed in terms of grinding out a long game. That deck was resilient as ever. 2-1 as we head into round 4. Here we are for game 4 with a pretty horrible hand due to mana issues. I think we will take the mulligan here. We don't have any card draw in red. If we had like a Thrill of Possibility, it'd probably be keepable. Discard a blue card, draw 2. Dig for the blue source. But as it stands, just playing an Amplifier into a Kavu, fires with no blue source, I think we have to mulligan. Alright, much better mana. Everything's a 2-drop. We can drop a land here. Fire's technically 5-drop, ideally. But Amplifier, just playing that on turn 2 is super fine, so let's get rid of a land here and just go for the turn 2 Amplifier. Roll from there. Another Impulse, beautiful. There's a Goblin Picker from our opponent. We don't have any of our infusions, but those would be beautiful here. Kind of want a Thrill of Possibility rather than Impulse, because basically any draw in my deck is good here. Because we want to hit lands and we want to hit like cheap burn for the picker, so I think Thrill, discard Kavu is actually where I want to be. Gives us an opportunity to hit like Mountain plus Infusion and just really get our opponent for damage. Got another Amplifier. Could just jam this one in. Again, 2 toughness. It's basically always just going to trade off into something. Yeah, even if it could find a massive attack later. With an incredible 5-drop like Sphinx of Clear Skies in our hand now, we're just going to be dumping these impulses and turning them into lands ASAP. Every turn from now on. And I'm still cool with the Amplifier attack here because it trades much better offensively than defensively, so even if we're just trying to survive till we hit turn 5, Amplifier is helping us survive more by attacking them than it is by blocking, because declaring attacks with it, it's threatening to actually trade into a 2-2 instead of just chump blocking a 2-2. Now it's just going to trade into a 2-1 no matter what, but is what it is there. Alright, so I've got land 3. I think now we just play the island and pass, and I can impulse on blocks to trade into the picker instead of the herbalist. I don't care too much about their life gain. I guess it scries as well. Herbalist might be a little better to trade into. I guess they're both good little card advantage engines. I mean, the Herbalist they're both card selection, not card advantage, but that's still pretty solid. Discarding useless cards to draw good ones or scrying into better stuff. Alright, we don't have a shore up here, but since I'm gonna impulse anyway, I can see if I draw into one. We do not. And do I need 4 mana next turn? I kind of do. Yeah, take the untapped land so that I can play an Amplifier and a spell. So that I can declare a block next turn. That's pretty important. Alright, just sending the Herbalist. They're just setting up their draws, making sure they have some solid plays throughout the game. Goblin Picker filtering through their cards. Herbalist scrying through their deck. Pretty solid stuff. We've got our 5 mana now, so our Impulse can actually hit some kind of gas. Whatever the best spell is in the top 4, instead of having to pick up a land. Alright. Our opponent has really, really good card selection going on, so they're likely to draw quite well this game. So I don't love our position, but it's probably pretty even. Since we just have like two of our best cards in our deck coming up between Sphinx and Fires. I'm just going to be tapping out for a creature next turn, then I'm going to play maybe one spell the turn after that, so I'll definitely take the trade here. This amplifier is not going to be doing a lot for a long time, and if they have any removal spells, they're going to slam dunk their removal onto the Sphinx of Clear Skies. So the Sphinx is not a reliable way to block these 2/2s and 2/1s and stuff. Okay, I might just Fires of Victory before I Sphinx, because that's the only way I know I'm going to have enough cards to do it. I guess I'm only playing one card next turn if I just play Sphinx. But I'd still like to just kill that immediately, I think. Flowstone Infusion or Timely Interference is interesting. Probably Flowstone Infusion to get rid of the Goblin Picker at worst. Rather than just cycling into a random card. Timely Interference is kind of like just taking the mystery box there. It could be anything. It could even be a boat. Alright, Daneth is gone. And now we drew into a shore up, so it might play really well that we waited on the Sphinx. Because they could easily have Destroy Evils. The bots basically never take them in my experience. You can have 3-4 copies of Destroy Evil that you drafted like pick 10 plus in your white decks, despite it being one of the best white commons. So at least we have the shore up to counter one copy of Destroy Evil that could be used to try to kill our Sphinx. It would cost them 4 mana total because of the ward, but that's definitely castable with their mana right now. And perfect, we do hit a land to hold up a shore up. So we drop the Sphinx and hold that up. And we try to just ride a Sphinx of Clear Skies all the way to victory. Speaking of the most underdrafted card by the bots, there's the Destroy Evil. We'll wait till they pay for the ward, obviously. And then we'll shore up. And there's a Thrill of Possibility discarding their last card in hand to draw 2, digging for removal. The Goblin Picker can help them dig as well. We've got an Essence Scatter, which is wonderful. Timely Interference doesn't do anything on these creatures. Could still cycle it just to draw a card, but I'd rather see what I'm drawing off the Sphinx first. Land or land? Alright, I'll keep one of these in hand in case I draw another Thrill of Possibility of my own. Don't think it matters which. I'll take the blue source, I guess. So we got a little bit more blue than red right now. Let's Infusion the Picker before they untap and get to discard a card and draw a card off of it. And do I want to just cycle Timely? I've got so much mana, I think I can probably just wait. And just, if they do something where I immediately need a shore up, then I can Timely to see if I draw into a solution. Drawbridge kind of works as removal for Sphinx. It's going to cost them 5 mana a turn to keep tapping it, but better than them dying, so they'll probably do that. Let's scatter it. Another Goblin Picker. Okay, I think I will play Timely Interference aggressively next turn if I don't naturally draw removal for that, since that helps them dig for their removal pretty quickly. Again, if we don't find it off of the Sphinx or our draw step, but since we get to look 3 cards deep trying to find it, I'm waiting to play the Interference until we see off of these 3 cards. Okay, we found it. Lightning Strike. I will take Lightning Strike over Balmor right now, because Sphinx is single-handedly winning the game. Plus Electrostatic Infantry certainly can win if Sphinx dies. So we drop the infantry first, pretty obviously, then we strike the picker. Yeah, they just scoop them up. They are over it. Sphinx of Clear Skies is a disgusting magic card, and that is going to be our second win off of the Sphinx, our third win total. We are 3-1, getting a 50-50 record with this deck at worst. But we'll see how far we can take it as we head into round number 5. Here we are for game 5. We can't really keep a one-lander. I guess if I do draw a land, I have Thrill of Possibility coming up, which helps a lot, but still far too much risk. Okay, we've got a 2-lander this time, no 2-mana draw spells, and no creatures for the combat trick. I think I still keep this. I just ditch the combat trick and hope to hit the 3rd mana for Espionage to dig us out of this. We've got Infusion for their first threat. We've got Timely to cycle away into something else as well. Alright, there's a Battlefly Swarm. Good enough for me. I guess we'll be infusioning that, most likely. Actually, Timely Interference is gross against Battlefly Swarm. Because if they try to block and Death Touch later, I can just make it an 0-1. I'm going to keep the infusion and cast it on their second creature. Hopefully. Perfect. We'll kill Splatter Goblin with infusion and save Timely to try to nuke the Battlefly Swarm when it tries to get a Death Touch trade. And really ruin their day. And now we'll probably have to Essence Scatter their turn 3 creature since I have no more removal in my hand. Just to stay alive for a while. Okay, I don't have to scatter that. It wouldn't be bad to scatter it. It is a 2-for-1. They get a creature on the board and they draw a land, but we're not under enough pressure to need to do that. Now there's a Fires of Victory. Pretty excellent draw. Drawn to Thrill of Possibility and Bellow. Bellow's pretty bad here, but Thrill of Possibility is going to be super helpful since we get to discard the Bellow to draw 2. Alright, still no 3-drop creature for our opponent. We're pretty happy to see that. Do I need to hold up 4 mana? I think I'd rather get the Bog out of the way, but there's an argument to just hold up 4 mana so I can play Essence Scatter and Thrill in the same turn. But if I need to Essence Scatter, it's okay that I don't cast Thrill of Possibility this turn. And we can just Thrill in the end step, so it's not like I won't be holding up Scatter by not having 4 mana up. Yeah, that's big enough to scatter, but I could also just Fires of Victory at next turn. But then if I Fires of Victory, I'm tapped out of Scatter for their next threat. I guess we scatter that and hold Fires for the next? No, they could have like 7/7s and stuff in green-black. I'm actually going to let that resolve so that we can still have Scatter. If they make it to like 7 mana, they could have like 7/7 trample, gain 5 style cards. Okay, and they've been main phasing. They've been playing all of their creatures main phase 2. So I don't think there's any value in holding up Fires at instant speed, because I'm just going to have to kill it when it declares the attack. And then when they go to cast a creature main phase 2, I won't have mana up anyway. Plus, since I drew Amplifier, that's going to make this really helpful. Since I drew the Gitu Amplifier, if they resolve something super, super scary, once I have 7 mana, which I have in my hand, so it'll take a couple turns, but once I get to that 7 mana, I can bounce the really scary creature and then scatter it. I will have to take a turn off, which could be pretty painful depending on how big their 6-drop spell is here. If it's like Bortuk Bone Rattle, that'll be brutal, because not having the counter for Bortuk would be devastating. They just put the Baloth back in their hand. Okay, beautiful. Could just play an unkicked Amplifier at this point, because now I'm just going to have Essence Scatter up for the rest of the game, pretty much. I don't have to spend 5 on an Amplifier. Sure. Keep taking our 1 damage from Battlefly Swarm. That 20-turn clock has been chipping away. 6 turns of 1 damage now. We're down to 14. They're just going to pass turn. They might be flooding out a bit. See what Impulse finds for us. Balmor or Kavu? I mean, 1 spell is already enough for Vinewall to get killed by Amplifier. Actually, I actually have not been a massive fan of Balmor in this deck, weirdly enough. Kind of wish I took the other card in the pack that had Balmor. I think it would have been better. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember that they were 2 cards good. It was Micromancer. Yeah, I actually think Micromancer would have been better in this deck in particular than Balmor has been. So we send in the Amplifier, and if they block, we Timely to get the kill on Vinewall. Make it a -1/2. Drawn to a Lightning Strike. That is a very good one. Give the Battlefly Swarm Death Touch. Bite down. Timely interference is so good against Battlefly Swarm. Alright, your Battlefly Swarm will do 0 damage to my Amplifier. Now they're going to have to extinguish. Alright, so this is a lot of spells being cast, but I think it ends with us being up. Because we draw off of our Timelies. Yeah, I mean, we have 5 cards to their 1. That, I think, ended pretty well. And we just drop a Kavu. Oh, I guess I only had 2 blue sources. That's the one issue here, is that we're not holding up Scatter, but I have another Amplifier if I don't just jam it out. So I'm going to not jam it out. That way I can, if they resolve a massive creature, bounce it and counter it next turn. Deathbloom Gardener is certainly not a massive creature. It is an annoying one, and I don't have any more Timely interferences in my deck, so I might strike it in the end step here. Yeah, I think that's fine. Get our Kavu damage in. Alright, now we can just deploy some massive threats and protect them. Double shore up. I say massive, but no blue-red threat is going to be that massive, except Tolarian Terrors. Those would have been pretty nice, but we didn't see any in the draft pod. Tolarian Terrors are blue's version of the cost reduction creatures in this format. They cost 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard, and they're a 5/5 ward 2. So sometimes you get to play them for like 1 mana and just get a ridiculously big creature down. I don't love blowing a shore up here, but it's probably worth it to get the Vinewall out of the way and get more damage in. I guess not, because realistically Amplifier's only hitting them for an extra 1 damage every turn anyway. Kavu's already hitting plenty hard. I don't have any proactive spells in my hand, they're all reactive. So I'm never going to be giving Amplifier extra power, even if the Vinewall's out of the way, so it's not that important to clear the path for the Amplifier. Kavu's already winning the race. So we'll just make sure we can keep Kavu on board, and now we can easily clear the path proactively, which means we'll get extra damage in when we cast the removal spell, which is great. We're holding on to this island again for any thrill of possibilities we might draw. I haven't checked, but I don't think we drew both of them. Yeah, we've only drawn one. Balduvian Atrocity unkicked, just a 2/3 menace. Fair enough. We can beat that with either of our creatures with a shore up. So that feels pretty good. We will likely be doing that. I guess I could technically go for lethal here. And just let Amplifier trade with Atrocity. Can I? Can buff the Kavu 5 times? It's 7, 8. Yeah, I can go for lethal. Let's see. And they can't have a removal spell in response even, because it's already got hexproof if the first shore up resolves. And if they target it with removal in response, I play the second shore up. Alright. Flowstone Kavu getting juiced up with extra combat tricks, giving it additional toughness to use its ability even more times. Little fancy. I don't think that was necessary at all. We could have just played it out safe and gone for our 2-turn lethal there, but it was cute. It was cute. It was fun for sure. We are now 4-1 as we head into game number 6. Here we are on the play for game 6, hoping to get a lot of mileage out of Thrill of Possibility. Love having the Tributary in the opening hand. It's going to be super helpful for casting a million spells in one turn. Ooh, now we drew an Impulse. I think I'd still rather Thrill currently. Although I would most likely want to just discard Bellow since I don't have any creatures. An Impulse might just find me a creature, so I guess I can just Impulse first. Be more selective about what I'm drawing. Alright, our opponent is just going to Thrill of Possibility. Go to the end step, we'll drop the Impulse. We find Haunting Figment or Essence Scatter. Huh. I mean, with the Thrill of Possibility in hand, I think I'm actually just going to pick up Essence Scatter and then thrill away the Furious Bellow. Although we just top deck another Impulse. But yeah, with instant speed card draw in hand, I think I'd actually just rather take Scatter, and then we just play card draw if we don't need to counter their thing, and counter their thing if we do. Keldon Strike Team, I certainly don't need to counter that. We just Lightning Strike it. Next turn I have 4 mana, so I can both counter something and draw some cards, or we can drop this Figment we drew into, and then now do either or. We either counter something or draw cards. That's pretty spooky. Counter that. Buffs their whole board every time it attacks. Shore Up is the draw. Don't have any removal spells or combat tricks or anything at instant speed. Or not combat tricks, counter spells or anything at instant speed, so I could just cast a piece of card draw right now. See if we find anything else to dump out. But I think it's fine to just Impulse plus Thrill during their turn. And that way maybe we Impulse into another Lightning Strike or something. If they drop a 3-drop and we want to kill it. Miria's Outrider. That's spooky. I don't have any more counter spells in this deck, so I don't think I need to Impulse before that resolves. But I think I still will. Since I'm going to Impulse anyway, this might make them think we have more counters in our deck, which could make them play their threats a little more slowly. Probably not, but we might as well. Okay, I'm going to have to Thrill... No... If I Thrill here, I'm going to discard Shore Up at this point, because I actually want Bellow to potentially kill the Outrider, because it works on attacks or blocks. Yeah, I'm actually just not going to Thrill then. Uh-oh, draw another Thrill is actually a little awkward. Yeah, we attack in here. If they block, we get to Furious Bellow. If they don't block, then since Figment has Vigilance, we just get to block and then Bellow later. Infusion, they're red-white. They should have small enough creatures for this to have a solid target. So I'll hold on to that. Griffin Protector, small enough for Lightning Strike. Unless they have a Resolute Reinforcements at instant speed. They've got a Goblin Picker at sorcery speed. So we kill the Protector, we top deck Infusion, and we kill the Picker. Still think I'm on Thrill of Possibility discarding Shore Up. It's so good when we have our great creatures, but I really don't care about this Figment that much. Is it Argivian Phalanx? We're definitely gonna have to find something to deal with that. Another Bellow would be great. Ooh, Amplifier and Fires of Victory. I am a card off from Fires of Victory doing enough damage. So I could just... Well, I was going to say I could just Amplifier for now, but if I do, then I'll still be a card off next turn. Because then I'd play this, I'd go down another card, I'd have 2 cards in hand, next turn I draw a card. I have 3 total, I play Fires and do 3 damage when I kick it. So I think I have to just not play the Amplifier. And pass. I could thrill away the Amplifier to draw 2. Still end up with the same number of cards in my hand, but it's different stuff. I don't think I want to do that. At 5 lands now, 6th lands are super redundant, so if I find a 6th land, Thrill of Possibility will be much better. Discarding that. Okay, so we're going to take our 4 damage. We're going to play a Dragon Whelp. That is pretty scary. And a Masic. How do they have so much stuff left? I feel like I've been using a lot of card selection and card draw, and they've just been playing dorks and they still have stuff. Well, that's not good. In the slightest. 2 solid flying threats. This one can buff itself up to 5 power every turn without dying. So this is actually hitting me for 5 evasively every turn, so I guess on the plus side, now we get to kill their biggest threat right now, instead of having to wait till our turn. Shore Up is not great, but it's fine on an Amplifier. Because then that'll be 4 power against the Phalanx. Yeah. Now we have a solution for the Phalanx, and we can slow it down for now. So all we need to do is hit a way to deal with Cavalier and we'll be good. We've got a lot of those. Any of our removal will do that. Flowstone Infusion or Lightning Strike or anything like that. Actually, did we hit both Lightning Strikes? Oh, we already hit both Lightning Strikes and 1 Infusion and the Fires. So we only have like 1 removal spell left, and they top-decked Squee now? Which just keeps coming back from their grave. They have to exile 4 cards to do it, but they have 8 in their grave, so they can bring it back twice? Alright, well, I don't really think I can beat these draws, unfortunately. We're doing what we can here, which is solid stuff, but they're just hitting full gas, no brakes here. Yeah, they just escape Squee after I do this. And then I try to Shore Up into Squee next turn, and they still escape it one more time. There's a Bellow to kill something without losing a creature, but Shore Up's already going to kill a Squee without losing a creature. There's no value really to bouncing something with this amplifier right now, so I think it's better to just play it right now. There will be value later once they have the Phalanx on board. Bouncing that is fine. But if I play it out now, I get to kill their Goblin token for free while I'm using Shore Up to kill Squee. So here's Phalanx. Okay, so we kill that and we Shore Up into Squee. I've got the Bellow to kill the Phalanx, but Squee comes back one more time. Still. Minimum. And they top-decked Cavalier now. Still all gas. There's the land for Thrill. Probably have to hold off on that, so that our amplifiers are 3 power and I can kill a Cavalier. Phoenix Chick off the top for more gas. It's more hasting flying damage. Squeeze back again. Alright, so we gotta kill Squee. We might just be dead right now, are we? Oops. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? No, but I don't think there's anything in our deck that's gonna make it so we're not dead next turn. Scry first and then draw the card. Draw the 2 cards, I mean. Yeah, infantry's not going to do it. That's 2 blockers, nothing in the sky. We're dead in the sky. There's one thing in the sky. I actually don't have the mana to play both of these, though, so that's still 2 blockers against 5 creatures. Alright. 3 things get in for damage apiece. And that is going to be game. Well, that was a brutal game. They just kept hitting gas there. The biggest one being Squee. Squee is just a phenomenal magic card, and that was going to be super difficult for our deck to beat, because even if we had like a scatter up for it, it just keeps coming back regardless, right? Because you just have to be able to exile Squee, or Squee's just got to give you a really, really rough time. And our deck does not have exile spells, because blue and red just kind of don't have exile spells in this format. We just have damage and counter spells, so Squee was the super big issue. The fact that they just kept hitting gas every single turn was rough, but I think without the Squee, we would probably have been able to grind it out and survive until we hit this Sphinx this turn, and then the Sphinx could slowly turn things around for us, because I expended resources into killing Squee 3 times in a row, so if you imagine that Squee was them missing a draw 1 time and just hitting like an extra land that turn, then we had the resources to grind out and kill 3 different things. So we could have killed Cavalier plus Phalanx plus some other thing. We would have taken some flying damage for a bit, but wouldn't have taken any Squee/Goblin extra damage there. We'd probably be at 5 or 6 this turn, drop the Sphinx down, then they can't attack in the sky anymore. And we'd have enough life to not immediately die on the ground, and then maybe Sphinx turns it around. Still not a guarantee, but Squee was definitely the most important card of the match, the big MVP there. So 4 and 2 it will be as we head into round number 7. Here we are for game 7, begging Thrill of Possibility to find some action here. The Thrill of Possibilities basically let us mulligan without going down a card. That's why I'm not actually mulliganing to 6. Turn 2 Weatherlight completed, so once When 4 of their creatures die, we're going to have a very big issue on our hand. And then they have a 5/5 flyer. Okay, yeah, that on turn 2 against our deck is quite threatening. Because that's kind of our game plan for many of the early turns, is casting Flowstone Infusions and Lightning Strikes and stuff, and that basically just means killing their creatures. And we don't have great removal for a 5/5. I guess we have 2... We might be fine, because we've got 2 of the bounce creatures in our deck. So if we bounce this back to their hand after it turns into a creature, then they have to just do it all over again. And that should be pretty good. Unfortunately, though, our opponent is getting an incredible domain start. They naturally hit Forest, Plains, Mountain, and now they have the Weatherseed Treaty to find the swamp. So they're on 4 out of 5 domain. So if they have anything that cares about their domain here, they are quite likely to have some really explosive plays coming up. So pass turn. They get their Saproling out of the Weatherseed Treaty, and we'll see what their 5th land is. Deathbloom Gardener is the creature for turn. They might just not have a 5th land. They do. It's a Sacred Peaks, so they don't have a blue source at least. So not like full domain. Still not really what we want to see. So I think I'm just saving all my removal. These are just 1/1s, and I'd like to delay killing things as long as possible. So once the treaty triggers, we'll infusion whatever they target. I guess killing the Mana Dork is still pretty good, keeping them off of blue if they are the full 5 colors, which is likely. Yeah, I guess I spend the more expensive removal now, and then I infusion the Saproling when they target it with treaty. But that Weatherlight completed is starting to do its work. Scry to the top, so they just kept whatever was there already. Now we have a Sphinx of Clear Skies, so we have our own game plan. Hopefully an Impulse or a Thrill of Possibility can find a shore up for us. I mean, am I really that scared about taking 5? I might... You know what? I'm actually just... I really don't care about the Sapling on any turn but this turn, so I'm just going to soak up the damage here and cast a bunch of card draw. Save all my removal spells for better cards, because again, the more removal I cast, the closer the Weatherlight completed gets to trying to kill us, which is spooky. So let's Impulse. Come on, shore up. No shore ups here, but there's a Lightning Strike I think would be the best pick. Now we can Thrill, discarding Furious Bellow, because that's certainly not necessary on a Sphinx of Clear Skies. Alright. I don't love just jamming out Sphinx of Clear Skies, but since I don't have a shore up in my hand anyway, what am I going to do with any extra mana I'm holding up alongside it? I could play the really long game since we're not under much pressure, and just not cast it until I draw into a shore up. There's 2 in here, and there's 23 cards left. I mean, honestly, sure. I mean, I play a 1/2 on the board to block the 1/1. Like, they have 3 cards in their hand, and the most likely things they could have are lands, 7 drops, or removal spells, and out of those 3 things, I feel like removal spells are at least in the top 2 of the most likely things. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they have blue spells, but then they would have Weatherseed Treatied into a blue source, because they haven't played anything for their black mana. We'll find out soon enough. Now they have 4 cards highlighting. There's Floriferous Vine Wall, doesn't do much here. Finds another forest for our opponent. Sorry for the bit of a delay there. Had to check my messages real quick. Alright. Yeah, maybe it's just all lands. I feel like they probably would have used removal on the infantry. It's Timely Interference now, still not a shore up, but Electrostatic Infantry is certainly enough to win the game by itself. So let's just focus on that. I mean, because now Fires of Victory is just big enough to kill a 5/5 if the Weatherlight becomes that kind of a problem. Okay, so it is a Flowstone Infusion. Do we want to go to war over this? Probably should. It's going to be pretty good value if this doesn't die right now. The only issue with this is that now I'm too low on cards in hand for Fires of Victory to kill a Weatherlight completed later. But it's going to be maximum 3 counters. It needs 4 to start attacking. Terra Sunder. Okay, so we are getting their hand out of the way. Now they have 1 card left. Obviously, I can't do anything about Terra Sunder. Alright. Cool. Drawn to an amplifier. Nope. Not going to do that. I will go ahead and cast the Sphinx now, because now we've gotten a Terra Sunder out of their hand at least. They just have 1 card left. Still no shore up is a bummer, though. Neither of our 2 shore ups in the top 20. Did I ever impulse one at the bottom? No. So there's 2 impulses in these, or 2 shore ups in these next 17 cards. Amplifier is not good enough to win, though. Yeah, we just play the Sphinx. Amplifier is not quite an Electrostatic Infantry. Hope that Terra Sunder is the main card they were banking on. And there's a Miria's Outrider. We don't have the Scatter up, so that is painful. That can also chump the Sphinx, but it can't kill it. Okay, so we send the Sphinx in. We're going to have to play some blockers, hold up Scatter and Lightning Strike. Most likely. They could try to combat trick kill the Sphinx. I guess that would work here. No, because I can Fires of Victory the Outrider in response. Cool, so we hit them. We get to draw 1 card out of the top 2. It's Island or Island. Ooh, give me a double island pile. Thank you. I mean, I'll take it. Now... drop Amplifier. Drop Amplifier. Yeah, I think drop 2 Amplifiers, hold up 1 spell is fine. Give them 1 hit with the Outrider and just make sure we always have Essence Scatter up for any more Outriders. Oh, they're not even going to attack. Well, then I don't even have to consider my risks there. I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, still holding up Fires of Victory when I go to combat here, so that if they try to block and combat trick the Sphinx, it doesn't work. Alright, so far so good. They might have a burn spell, though, after this. And that would certainly work. 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got the mana to Fires plus Scatter, so I think I hold these in hand to make sure Fires is big enough to kill the Weatherlight completed. If we need it to be. Yeah, post-combat burn spell's rough. Guess I should have just fires the reach creature, but then the Weatherlight would be active. Or no, it would be at 3 counters. Spooky either way. Yeah, this is a problem. So now we gotta find another route to victory. Okay, there's the island. They've got all 5 colors now. They're gonna go for pass turn. Can Lightning strike the Steel Crusher and then kick a Fires of Victory on Weatherlight completed next turn and start trying to kill them with amplifiers, I guess? Gotta wait till I have a 5th card in hand, though. Definitely hold up Scatter instead of playing Haunting Figment. And we're going for it. No more Fires of Victory, so we can definitely play a land here. There's a Wrath. +1/+1 Vigilance to everybody every turn. If they play any instants or sorceries, they are drawing cards because they've got 2 creatures down. They could definitely have Scarier, but I think that is scary enough to scatter. And they're just going to scoop them up. They see that I have 4 cards and drop an Essence Scatter, and they're over it. I mean, they knew one of them was a land, but I guess they are just tired of blue-red control-y stuff, which is fair enough. So we are going to be 5-2 now. Excellent, excellent place to be. I don't think we're quite breaking even yet. Quick drafts are pretty rough in terms of having to win a ton of games to break even. But I guess since we keep all the cards that we drafted, we are at 650 gems. It costs 750 to play, and we're getting 650 a pack and everything we drafted back. So basically breaking even here at 5 wins, but we are 1 win away from being in the money. So we'll see if we can't get at least 1 more win in with this blue-red deck as we head into round number 8. Alright, here we are now for game 8 on the play. It's a pretty reasonable hand. This is basically what we want in every hand. We want a little bit of interaction, we want 1 threat to protect, and a little bit of card draw. So this looks pretty excellent to me. Impulse plus Scatter together is pretty great. We are on the play here, so scattering a 2-drop is not going to be super important. So I'm going to get Balmor down first, and then we'll start holding up Impulse plus Scatter. If we do wait till turn 3, we get to hold up Shore Up immediately, but there's not a ton of 2-mana removal that can hit a Balmor in this format. The main one is like Destroy Evil that only hits bigger stuff. So we're just going to start grinding it out, chipping in for 1 a turn. And trying to keep whatever they're doing under control for the most part, if it's too scary. Vivisector is not that scary. Take this opportunity to Impulse. Holding up the Shore Up still, just in case I'm completely forgetting something insane. But I don't think there's anything good for 1 blue. There'd be a bounce spell maybe. I should probably hold up 1 red mana instead in case I hit a Flowstone Infusion for the Vivisector. But if I do, casting it during our turn is going to do an additional damage to our opponent by buffing Balmor, so I think this is fine all around. And just keep that Shore Up up. If we hit the removal, we'll cast it main phase. Well, could drop a Figments alongside Balmor and then get a lot more mileage out of Balmor's ability, or could really make sure Balmor sticks around. I think I'll take the Figment. We're going to have 4 mana up. We can play a Figment and hold up an Essence Scatter next turn. And then we're just trying to draw into basically any combat tricks to really try to close this game out. I guess Shore Up is technically a combat trick, but we're really looking for Furious Bellows or Flowstone Infusions, because those can stack up a lot of extra damage with a Balmor on board. Instead of +3/+0 first strike, it's going to be +3/+0 first strike to Balmor, plus +1/+0 trample to everybody. So it's an extra 5 damage per Furious Bellow now, if we hit those, and next turn I can even cast a Kavu holding up Essence Scatter, and then we can really stack up the damage with Balmor. So we are likely to cast this Kavu, but we can do so after we attack. Again, holding up the Scatter and the Shore Up, so we've got a counterspell for their removal, and we've got a counterspell for a creature, but we can only cast one of the two, so that could be a little bit of a problem. If they go for like an end-step removal spell into a good creature here. I think with Balmor on board, probably important to keep as many creatures down as possible, so I will Shore Up here, and shields are down, so we can't scatter their potential 5-mana creature this turn. Well, that plays pretty poorly, because Frostfist Strider is going to be pretty annoying. It's not actually a massive deal. It's hitting us for 4 a turn, which is a little scary, but it doesn't really block anything by itself. And Lightning Strike is the draw. That pretty tempting for some combo kill potential. This Thrill of Possibility looking pretty awkward. I don't want to discard Scatter, I don't want to discard Strike. If I strike their face, they go to 12 and we hit for 5 that they can't block, they go to 7. Thrill of Possibility main phase puts them to 5. This is kind of aggressive, but I'm going to Lightning Strike the face here. So, if they didn't have a way to deal with Kavu, that would have probably just been like a lethal turn right there. Okay, Phyrexian Espionage, a little annoying, but we have the Thrill of Possibility to discard, so that's fine. Maybe I should have discarded Scatter, since Thrill of Possibility is something that I could cast during my turn proactively, just to trigger Balmor and give the whole board the trample. Actually, probably should have done that, because it would trigger Figment as well, so that might have been just lethal if we just kept Thrill. Ooh, yeah, that was a big punt, because then we would have been hitting for 5 here minimum, since Figment gets in. Now we're just hoping they play a creature. Yeah, that was really bad. That might cost us the game here, because we're so likely to have just won off of Thrill of Possibility, it's kind of nuts. Okay, if they have Cut Down, we wouldn't have quite just won on the spots, because then we would have thrilled into 2 cards. Figment gets in for 3. Kavu trades off into Strider. We would put them to like 3 maybe. But it certainly would have been better than this. Now we're, I think, just actively losing. They have 5 cards. They're down to 7, but they have 5 cards against our 1 basically. Board states are somewhat even. They don't need a lot to close out this game. So again, we didn't punt out of like instant lethal. They can recast that from grave, but they have to discard 2 cards to do it. I'm still going to Scatter here. Anyways, we didn't punt out of immediate lethal, but we definitely would have been in a significantly better position. So playing the island here is going to play poorly if we draw our one Thrill of Possibility, but if we draw any of our other 24 cards, it's better to play the land here so that I can buff Kavu and try to kick Amplifier. And we hope they don't have cheap removal again. Well, that's pretty annoying. It's the -2/-2, use it on the Kavu instead of the Figment since we buffed it. On the plus side, if we didn't buff Kavu, they just kill Figment, so they still stop. Just permanently kill one of our creatures. And they could have killed Kavu with it kicked at any point. They had the mana. So Kavu wasn't long for the world regardless. And just more lands for us. Probably punt it out of this one. I mean, let's do the math here. So we would have cast Thrill instead of Scatter. They would have killed Balmor. We would have drawn into land off of the Thrill. I guess we just lose either way, since our last two draws were lands. We would have drawn into land, been unable to counter Rona. They'd be at like 2 or 3, I think. But then we have no way to get damage in because we're not drawing any instants or sorceries either way. Certainly played this out pretty poorly, but we're drawing poorly enough that probably just losing anyway. Which is pretty unfortunate. They don't have a creature to follow up. Maybe we top deck, double spell to get Amplifier through. I guess even if they do play a creature, if we hit fires into a 2 or less mana spell, but Vohar can just cut down the Amplifier. If they sack Vohar, flashback there, cut down from grave. Yep. Cut down the Amplifier it is, and now there's nothing in our deck that'll get us out of this one. Alright, there were only 1 or 2 suboptimal turns really this game, but they were pretty suboptimal, but bad plays plus bad draws are definitely going to lead to the loss there, and with another land in a row, I think even played perfectly, we probably lose that game. But it'd be incredibly close. So at least even if we didn't punt on that one turn with the major punt, we would have still lost, but maybe there was a better line and more turns than just that one that could have just barely squeezed out that victory. Pretty close game regardless. Kind of a bummer. Waits ends it at 5-3, just short of being in the money, but still, 5-win run is still a very positive win rate off of a deck that I specifically chose to draft suboptimally. So being able to do a draft like this where I chose to draft a worse deck in our seat than what I knew would have been better, which was Domain, I think 5 wins is perfectly solid here. Definitely take it. Maybe some better plays could bring this to a 6-win run. Don't think we were quite getting to 7, but still very positive record. Very solid deck overall. Despite blue and red definitely being a lot more heavily drafted in our draft pod than just my 5,000th green-based Domain strategy in a row. But tried to keep it interesting for you all. Got punished a little bit for it with just a 5-win run instead of a 7, but that's still above average. We will definitely take it here. Grab our 650 gems, our 1 pack, and that is going to end the draft, and that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube channel members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link or the join button below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.